Close. A big day in the Julie Schenecker murder trial. The defense called her ex-husband, Colonel Parker Schenecker, to the stand. He gave a verbal tour through the family history, and it sounds like everything started out okay.
Did she express to you any desire to have children?
Yes, sir. I mean, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We both expressed desire to have children.
And was that a discussion that you had when you were dating as well as when you were married?
Yes, ma'am.
How was Julie as a first-time mother?
I thought she was a good first-time mother. I didn't have any comparisons to make, but I thought she was a good mother.
All right, his testimony continued, and the testimony focused on, okay, you know, you're in the house, you know, what are you noticing about your wife and the mother of your children? What was her mental state like? Were you involved in helping her? Take a listen.
You're saying that the first time that you saw any kind of low energy from Ms. Schenecker was shortly after you got married in Arizona and you're living together.
It was before we got married, but...
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. It was... Yeah, it could have been when we were living together.
Okay.
Right?
Does that continue, the low energy?
On and off, ma'am. It's kind of like a drumbeat, as I mentioned in my previous deposition, a drumbeat across our 20-year relationship.
Now, what does that mean to you, a drumbeat? Can you explain that to the jury?
Sure. It's just kind of expected in the scenes. She would have periods of higher energy, what you would kind of consider our normal activity, and then she would have periods where she had lower energy, where she might not have wanted to play ball or might have spent some time in bed, as I mentioned before. So that's what I mean by drumbeat.
Did you discuss with her at all her energy level, her depression, or her bipolar?
You know, from time to time across the 20 years, yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay. Were you active in her medical treatment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Were you aware of any kind of medications that she was taking?
Yes, ma'am. I knew she was taking some meds, but I did not monitor them, you know, ever looking at the prescription bottles and you know, monitoring her intake. No, ma'am.
All right, compelling testimony. Let's bring back in our legal dream team. Also with us is psychologist Eric Fisher. And let me read this to everyone here because I want to get your perspectives on it. This is what we got on a Facebook comment from a mother. I'm a mom of 3 sons, and I completely understand the difficulty raising children and suffering from depression. The entire family should be held responsible for not protecting these children and getting her the proper help she needed. Yes, I believe there are a lot of mental issues, yet she had choices, and so did the father. He should have stepped in to protect his children. Let me begin with you, Eric. All right, you know that she has issues.
Right.
You know, he's deployed. He's physically not there. Mm-hmm. Should he have made sure someone was... I mean, in retrospect, the answer is yes, obviously. But is it that evident? And is this something that where someone can deal with it on their own, raising the children, and dealing with the bipolar and everything else that she's dealing with?
I think unless somebody really knows diagnostically what was going on, they don't necessarily know what they need to do. And if you see your wife with energy and then not energy, does he really understand what the risks and needs of bipolar disorder are? Or did he just think that she was, you know, more tired at times than others? So ignorance, while it's not a defense of the law, sometimes is an explanation of what can happen and lead to these tragedies. So education is important. Being a good partner with your spouse, being an active parent are all keys to making sure these things don't happen. But the most important thing is, as a spouse, try to be involved with your spouse's mental health care if you can, especially in these situations.
Yeah, and it seemingly really wasn't happening here. And part of it is he's deployed and he's not physically there. Judge, let me... All right, let's take you back inside the courtroom because really a huge development today. And we've heard about Julie Schenecker and alcohol and some of the other things she was involved in. Something else came up today that I wasn't necessarily expecting. Take a listen.
She had a period of greater than a year of gambling away substantial monies at Hard Rock Casino, unbeknownst to her husband. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
At one point, according to what's documented in the medical records, she was going twice a month and spending over $1,000 a month, correct?
I recall that, and I believe that's correct.
And she reported, as far as her gambling in 2009, that she even dipped into some type of retirement fund and withdrew $1,700 and went through that. Isn't that correct?
I think she said she expected she'd probably end up using it for gambling.
And in the following note to not the psychiatrist, but the psychotherapist, the licensed mental health worker, she ultimately acknowledged that she had gone through the money. Do you
Yes.
recall?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, her gambling was so bad that she and Parker, her husband at the time, had to borrow $10,000 by her own admission to the doctors to make the monthly bills of the family. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Gambling addiction. Let's bring back in the Dream Team and Dr. Eric Fisher, psychologist. Eric, let me ask you about, should we be surprised that she has an issue with gambling as well?
Well, one of the features of mania when somebody's in manic phase is often delusions of grandeur, and they often will go out and spend large amounts of money. They think that they have the key to winning the lottery or winning at the tables and things like that. So it's not uncommon that you'll see really wild spending patterns when people are in manic phases.
Darren, how does this play with the jury now?